Hello everyone, Jamie Starr here for the New World News Network. On this episode, I want to get into the controversy surrounding Little Kim and her appearance. As we can see here, Little Kim, obviously darker on the right, has started to look more and more like a white woman. This, of course, is causing issues among the regressives because of course, the group that champions itself on telling you if you're a man, you can be a woman, if you're a female, you can be a cat, if you are I don't know, a Chinese woman, you can claim you're a dragon and a reptile and an attack helicopter and everything like that. Um, it's so mind-boggling because there's so much hypocrisy in it, because they will be fine with all of that, trying to tell everyone, well, you can be a different gender, you can be whatever. You had Rachel Dolezal, who was transracial and everything. But then if someone lightens their skin color, and I'm sure everyone realized by now I'm showing pictures of Beyonce, making a little joke about it, because their champion Beyonce has done this, where she appears white all the time. And it really shows where their actual racism lies, because if for any like I said, you can tell a man he's a woman, you can tell a chick she's a cat, but God forbid anyone want to be white. And that's really where the line in the sand is drawn. If you want to be one of these oppressed classes, what they call oppressed classes, that's fine. You can be in one of them, but there's nothing they hate more than someone. I mean, and I showed Beyonce. Beyonce gets no criticism. Blonde hair. I mean, she is probably one of the whitest black chicks you could see, and yet there's no criticism, because there is this idea put forth in terms of the cultural appropriation thing, where black people can't appropriate, they can only assimilate, white people can appropriate. And I've set aside a handful of videos. I have some really good ones coming up. A handful of them are conversations I've had with people. I have one coming that's going to be just called A Conversation with a Black Supremacist, and you really can see where there are these arbitrary rules, and my only question I continually ask is, who decided this? Who made this rule? Who has made these ideas that you are trying to govern reality by? Because it's like a social engineering on overload, and these people, they're so mentally trapped in trying to see reality like this, and then trying to get others to bend to these arbitrary rules. Oh, well, every race can share their culture except white people. You can't partake, and if you do, we're going to tell you your motives for doing so. We're going to say you can only harm people by doing so, and the only way to the only way to stop harming people by it is to admit your original sin of privilege. I mean, that's where it also gets so mind-boggling, because I watched on my Stars app, there was this video, bleaching hip-hop culture or something like that, and I was like, alright, I'll give this a chance. I want to see what they have to say. And it was really, within the first 10 seconds of the video, it says 80% of artists admit that they've been influenced by black artists. And then it was an hour of them being like, well, this song was sampled and the artist didn't get credit, and then they brought him to court, and then they won the court case, so they ultimately did get credit and paid, and they didn't talk about, black people sampling white music, of course, because blacks can assimilate, they can't appropriate. But it was literally an hour of them saying, we don't get credit, showing them get credit, and then at the end of it, they were like, oh, well, we don't care, we just want some recognition. Well, watch the first 10 seconds of the documentary you're in, you moron, and it says 80% of artists admit that they are influenced by black artists. I mean, it was this hour-long contradiction that I don't know how people couldn't watch and just be like, wow, that was a waste of an hour of my life. Like, there was nothing there. And it really just bothers me because you can tell it's an imaginary problem if all you have to do is agree with them. And that's where it's a bullying tactic, because it's basically like, you're a bad person, you're wrong about everything, you are an oppressor, and unless you admit that, you're wrong. The only way to be right is to admit you agree with me. And I have a handful of videos lined up that just drill that point home. I mean, I'm sure everyone has seen them by now. You have that crazy black chick sensei going around, all white people are racist. It's because of the society we're brought up in. Everyone has these views. There's no way to escape these views. The only way to be an ally is to admit you have these views. There's that girl Milo, guy, girl, guy. Everyone's transphobic. All white people are racist. The only way you can be my friend and be a good ally is to admit that you are transphobic and you are racist and you hate me and you are bred to hate me. You were raised to hate me. The only way I can even start to trust you is for you to admit you hate me. These people need mental help. And it's so funny because they're the ones that would go in a safe space and have a psychologist there, of course, tending to whatever has triggered them, but they need mental help on a much more serious level, in the fact that they have been brainwashed by some sort of Marxist outlook combined with their own self-loathing being projected. So anyway, that's my rant on videos that I have to come. Let's get into this Little Kim bit some more, because you're going to see there's nothing worse you could want to do than be a white person. You could want to be a cat, and that's okay, but to be a white person, and again, it's mind-boggling, because I just think how these people will describe this sort of white supremacy and everything like that, and then everything they will point out won't back it. Like, here's an example from the conversation with the black supremacist. He goes on this rant and says, Beyonce can wear a bindi dot on her head, and that's cool. She's not appropriating Hindu culture. Beyonce's good. Katy Perry, if she eats watermelon, because I guess watermelon's been claimed in the racial draft, which I hope everyone has seen that Chappelle Show skit, because that's how fucking bad this is. Things that 10 years ago were jokes are now reality. If she wears a grill and eats watermelon, that's her appropriating culture, that's oppressive, that's harmful, and everything. So I go to him and I say, okay, so under this white supremacy, how is it that Katy Perry's actions as a white woman can be criticized and shot down and everything like that, but Beyonce cannot be criticized? How is Katy Perry superior in that instance? How, in any of these instances, if white people, because, there's the quote, if you want to know who's in power, look at who you can't criticize. So, how is it, if white people are the ones that can be criticized and reprimanded and fired and everything else for their views, a college professor can say, I don't think Halloween parties are offensive. Fired. How are they superior? I mean, maybe it's just me, but I would think if they were actually superior, you would kind of have to check, they use the term check your privilege, but I would think the privilege would be exercised, and it would be like on a, fuck you, I'm superior, I'm on top, you can't get me fired. Maybe that's how it seems like it would operate to me. Like, I really think if there's an actual supremacy in place, that it would kind of knock back against it being challenged so much. And maybe people are just unaware of that. Like, I wonder, from what I hear about, 100 some odd years ago, when there actually was, like, some racial hierarchy, if people challenged it, they got lynched. And the other example I gave and I told this person, who was a friend of mine in high school, I said, if I called you the N-word, you could go after me for hate speech. You could call me anything, and I have no option of legal recourse. How am I superior when you have more legal protection? No answer, of course. And I named a handful of examples like that, where it was like over and over, I said, if you and me both went and worked at a job, you get fired, I get fired, you as a black person can sue for discrimination. I cannot. How am I superior? How do I have privilege to exercise and you do? And of course, no answer. And this is the other thing I hate about all of these Marxists, is there's this naive part of me where, and it, like a half hour into it, I'll tell myself, there's no way I can change your mind. There's nothing I can say. It's just you're brainwashed. But it's so aggravating because it defies all reality, and I will really try to talk to them and try to get a deeper understanding of why they personally view life this way. And you can't. The conversation only goes as far as the programming. You will only ever hear rhetoric. You will never actually get a response if you have a tangible question like, hey, in this situation, example A, example B, how is it like this? How do you square that away with your worldview? You won't get any answers. It'll just be these diversion tactics. Ben Shapiro, I believe, said that, like, arguing with the social justice warriors, like trying to nail down a piece of Jell-O, and that's what it's like. There's this sort of sticking and moving where the topic will change and you won't even know it's changed, and it's, oh my god. So anyway, back to Little Kim looking like a white girl and everyone being up in arms about it. Let's get into a video A.
Hey you guys, it's your girl T, and I want to go ahead and shout out Michael Imaji. He's one of the first ones on Facebook. He wanted to know my opinion on the whole Little Kim situation. So what's going down is that Little Kim took to Instagram to post a picture of her, and literally when she posted this picture, nobody recognized her. She looked like a whole different race. She did not look like the Little Kim that we're used to kind of seeing nowadays. She's even lighter. She's gone more blonde. She looks totally different. Even the mainstream media was shocked by Little Kim's look. Go ahead and check out this video, and I'm going to come back with the rest of my commentary.
Little Kim changes her look again, turning up unrecognizable. Jump Off rapper looks nothing like her former self in these new selfies she shared to Instagram over the weekend. In fact, Little Kim even looks different in each of the 6 pics.
What the is going on?
The star also shared this video showing off her new look, partying with 2 pals.
If Peter Piper pecked them, I bet you Kimmy bust them.
Now, this was the last time we saw Kim hanging out with Kim Kardashian a few weeks back, and something's definitely different now.
Little Kim, and I think with good lighting and a bomb hair makeup team, I might be able to get close to that look. Don't y'all write in and go get
Looking at the screen, the images hurt, to be really frank. I've known and worked with Lil' Kim.
This is so funny. Because it's my exact point. These people will tell you that someone who wants to be a cat is a hero, and we should all be proud of them and applaud them, and, Caitlyn Jenner, hero, brave, whatever. Little Kim changing her appearance hurts. I just, oh my god. God forbid people look how they want to look and experiment with their looks and everything like that. That we can't have. Chopping off dicks and everything, that's cool. But if you want your skin color lighter and to look a little blonde, it hurts. It's deeply unsettling. Because they're control freaks. I mean, and this is the whole thing, is when you realize the position they are talking from, and anyone who wants this sort of Marxist utopian idea, it's social engineering. It is, that's why they are trying to desperately to enforce stereotypes upon people and to say, you are only allowed to operate within the stereotype, or you are doing something harmful. Embrace your stereotype instead of, what were the attitudes of 10, 20 years ago. And then if someone doesn't confine to their stereotypes, it bothers them. Because that's how they're exerting control over society and reality.
For a long time. I was at Vibe, I was at Honey, I was at Essence. Some of my favorite magazine covers were with her.
Lady, you're kind of light-skinned looking too. I mean, that's the really funny part going on here too, is that I'm sure if you crank those lights up a bit, she'd be about the same color. Blonde hair, light-ass skin color and everything, and it deeply hurts. I think you need to be darker. You need, like, melanin injections or something. So, I'm hurt, just as you were hurt by Little Kim. This is the problem. Someone will always be offended by anything, because we are so spoiled and living in a society of luxury that we don't have anything else to fucking complain about except who's wearing dreadlocks and who's got bleached blonde hair and skin and everything like that. And here's the other funny thing. I'm not going to go to it right now, but I have a picture of Michael Jackson when he had white skin and everything like that. And the response to Michael Jackson was, he's a ghoul, he's a freak, he's a monster. And the response to Little Kim having similar appearance changes are, this is unsettling, this hurts me. So it went from, you're bad, to now I'm hurt. Like, they're not calling Little Kim a monster or saying she looks like a ghost or a ghoul or anything. So, oh, well, let me fast forward this since I hit the mouse. Alright, here we go.
Some of my favorite magazine covers were with her. We used to go to fashion shows together. She's such a lovely spirit, and this beautiful brown girl that was a...
You hear how she's talking? I mean, she's talking as if she died. Like, we used to go to fashion shows together. We used to... It's not the same person.
Lightning rod in the rap game when it was so male-dominated. She was the original Queen Bee. And so for many fans and many people, I adore Kim. There was a part of me that almost didn't even want to have this conversation because of that. But it is triggering, really internalized pain, not just black girl pain, but, you know, it's in Jamaica, it's in Thailand, it's in Asia, where this idea to be desirable, you must be white and blonde. Like, so many women all over the world have been told that for decades.
By who? That's one of my other big points, that I have a handful of these lined up. By who? Whose worldview is this? I've never heard anyone go to a brown-haired girl, or any girl for that matter, and be like, you know, you would be hot, but you're not blonde. Sorry. Oh, you would be attractive, but you're Asian. Oh, you would... I mean, who is saying this? Because I'll tell you who I see perpetuating all of these things, is I see a group of what I would call black supremacists going around and trying to tell everyone, hey, this is how they see the world. This is how, and I have a video pulled aside of bad-mouthing different religions and everything, because I was going to show from the Jews in World War II to how it's gone through, hit Christians, Muslims, everyone. But this is what you do in this sort of demoralizing the enemy process, is you have to try to convince everyone on your side that the enemy shares a worldview that is harmful to yours. I've never, and I will tell you, 90% of the things I've heard people come out and say, and being like, well, white people see the world like this, white people think this, white people think you're like this. They don't. And it's only this sort of straw man that exists in the minds of minorities, put there by Democrats and actual racist whites, to completely control them via their fear. Control everything. And then, when they get so radicalized that it then turns people loose, like the chick stopping the guy with dreads, and it's the infinite henpecking, where it's, oh, well, you can't eat sushi with chopsticks, you can't have dreadlocks, you can't do this, because it might bother someone somewhere in Candyland, like in this make-believe, hypothetical world that I exist in. It's, oh my god. It's so hard to just not want to stoop down to their level and not censor them, but lock them all away somewhere. We need a big-ass asylum, or we need a state to secede and just send them off to the socialist utopia. Get rid of them all. There's nothing good that they offer society. They only want rebellion. They only want everything to crumble. And you can tell when they list off their list of enemies, where they'll be like, oh, well, it's the straight male, capitalist, white supremacist, cisgender, patriarchal. I mean, it's this sort of spew of enemies that just pour out of their mouths, and you realize that they just said, everything but me is bad. And it's like, oh, God. There's nothing good you can offer anyone.
Decades, for generations, really, and that's what that is triggering. I haven't talked to her, so, I don't want to assume what her intentions are, but I do know what it's triggering in people and what it's...
Could you imagine that phone call? I mean, that's the henpecking. Hey, Kim, I was wondering, why do you look so white? It's really upsetting me. Why did you dye your hair blonde? I'm upset. I get really bothered by your personal decisions in your life, and I think you should think about the society of obsessive victims that we all are, and how we're going to interpret what you do with yourself and your freedom. Oh, freedom! Ah! I mean, that must be the phone call. I can only imagine.
Saying to us about who is beautiful and what aesthetic do we value.
Because here's the underside of this whole thing. She's trying to assert that society only values white blonde females, but on the other hand, because she is throwing such a fit about this, and because it shocked the news and it shocked everyone and everything else, and you're all on TV shouting it down, obviously, your assumption about reality is not true based on you being on this I mean, this is what I said. This is the hypocrisy that just... This is a problem, and we're going to completely ignore that we're all up in arms about this, proving that society doesn't feel the way that we're trying to tell you it feels. Our existence and our actions right now currently contradict what we are trying to tell you society perceives and believes, but you should trust us because we're upset. And because we're upset, our emotions have to have legitimacy. No.
There's so much.
If people really thought that someone going for blonde hair and white skin and everything like that was the idea of beautiful and everything like that, do you really think they'd have your whiny ass on CNN to shout it down? I mean, really, this is the white supremacy. I mean, you'd think they'd be like, ha, ha, you little light-skinned girl, you think we're gonna let you on the TV to talk about how ugly blonde hair is? Ha, ha, white power. But does it happen? No, because there isn't this fucking crazy system that you cannot... I mean, CNN is the system. This is where it gets insane. Candyland is where you exist.
Talk about on this, but I want to expand on this black girl pain that you speak of, and as you say, yes, I mean, this extends to Asia and other parts of the world as well. But Little Kim was quoted way back in the day in 2000 in a Newsweek interview, and she said this, quote, "I have low self-esteem and I always have. Guys have always cheated on me with women who were European looking, the long hair type, really beautiful women that left me thinking, how can I compete with that? Being a regular black girl wasn't good enough." So when you talk about it hurts to see these kinds of images.
Maybe you just have shitty taste in men. That's just a guess. I mean, you look at someone like Eve. Now, I wish I had pulled this story because it completely contradicts that point. But Eve basically came out and said the exact opposite shit. She said, I can't date these guys in LA. I can't date these black guys. I can't date any of these guys from over here. They're all scumbags. And I was unhappy until I found a divorced white man from somewhere in Europe who has a family, has kids, and we are so in love, and I love his kids. I love being a part of this family. And I guarantee you they're conservative. I guarantee you that's what it is, because something just tells me, you know, because I used to be a liberal. I was a liberal, I was a douchebag, I felt kind of entitled, I would cheat on ex-girlfriends. I mean, there was a side of me and a person that I used to be that is unrecognizable from who I am. And there was that shift during that time where my whole outlook on everything changed. So I guarantee you that's what it is. It's not a problem with Little Kim. It's a problem with the guys, and her going for douchebag guys. Like, if anything, she should sit down and have a conversation with Eve. And I guarantee you, when she comes back with a nice conservative European white man, and she's like, oh, I'm so happy I've never been in love, then of course she's going to be called a traitor to her race and everything else. But, whatever.
And when you hear, possibly, you know, I don't want to suggest that this was because she felt insecure, but as a black woman, Michaela, how do you react to that when you hear that kind of pain from an interview 16 years ago?
I mean, it rings true.
You know what's also amazing is look at these other pictures that they have going in the background. I mean, it's like they're basically going through over the years, like, oh, Little Kim with blonde hair there, Little Kim with blonde hair there. I mean, this is nothing new. Like, it really makes me think that these newer pictures they showed were just a matter of, like, lighting or concealer or some sort of makeup. Or, I mean, this is obviously, she's just been experimenting with her looks for a while now. And the other thing is, no one says anything about the plastic surgery. Like, I mean, you're not like, oh, her lips look fucking crazy. Look at her fucking crazy-ass cheeks. Like, she looks like some sort of doll of some sort. Like, oh my god, like...
True. I mean, Kim has been forward about her struggling with her feelings in the game, who was glamorous, what meant, you know, that it's kind of the metaphor for Becky with good hair, right? It's that same metaphor of who was beautiful and what a lot of women of color have to struggle with.
Look at her looking fucking Chinese there. I mean, what the hell? This is a picking and choosing of the battles, because the only thing that you are capable of attacking is what you're claiming is supreme. I mean, it's, again, a giant contradiction.
In that, right? We're in 2016 and the cover of People has Jennifer Aniston saying this is the most beautiful woman in the world in 2016. So we're constantly...
Can you believe that it's 2016 and they think a white woman is beautiful? I mean, what's wrong with Jennifer Aniston? I assume it's because she's white, right? I mean, this woman's reaction is like, it's 2016. Can you believe we haven't exterminated them yet? Like, who'd you want it to be? And this is the crazy thing, where they just want it. I mean, People magazine shouldn't be free to choose who they think is the most beautiful woman in the world. Maybe it was done by a vote. Maybe they had a poll in the prior issue. I mean, it's just...
consuming these images, particularly in mainstream media. And so because Kim has been around for so long, she hasn't maybe benefited from this big wave of black girl magic and everybody feeling ourselves and being so beautiful. She's been struggling for a long time.
That's what it is. It's a fucking everyone feeling themselves. It's a giant black girl circle jerk. That's obviously.
I just feel I want to put a, big black girl arms around her and hug her and tell her she's beautiful, because I think...
And here's the other thing, where you can tell who is the person who has the racial bias and everything like that, because who's the person that is now mentioning it before everything? Black girl magic, black girl hug, black girl this, black girl that. I mean, it's like... That's the person who's obsessed with race, the one who keeps bringing it up.
she's representing. There are a lot of girls who could, if they could afford it, would probably do the same thing.
Yeah, so let's talk about beauty standards in this world today, because so much pressure right now.
And that's the other collectivist problem, where it's like, Little Kim doesn't represent Little Kim. Little Kim represents every black girl everywhere ever, and so does every other black girl everywhere ever. So every black girl everywhere ever has to act in the best interest of every black girl everywhere ever, and sometimes personal sacrifices will have to be made so you uphold the stereotypes that are comfortable being held by every black girl everywhere ever. That's what Black Girl Magic is. It's a fucking cult of collectivists.
Oh my God, you're a fucking thing. You're fucking white. You have no melanin, bitch.
I mean, and this is the other thing, and this is what they want. They want rowdy people attacking Little Kim, being like, "You have no fucking melanin, you bitch." I mean, this is what is so amazing about it, is they'll all be like, "I'm so worried about Little Kim and her internalized feelings of insecurity, and she must not be happy with herself." Fuck you, bitch! You fucking traitor! No melanin, bitch! Like, ugh. Yeah, there's her with blonde hair in the 90s. Like, I mean, this is someone who's changed her look over and over. She's just now hit one that everyone can be, like, equating to a race and up in arms. If anything, it shows you the change in society, how the tone in society has gone from one of culture being shared and being open and experiment, color your hair, you want blue hair, you want green hair, you want pink hair, that's all cool. Blonde hair, no. Only Beyonce is okayed but for the blonde hair, but if Lil' Kim does it, even though she's been doing it for 20 years, we're now going to throw a fit. So, let's see what this YouTuber has to say.
Alright, so you guys just saw that video.
Color doesn't determine beauty, except if you're this color right up here, well, then you know there's a problem.
Alright, so you guys just saw that video. So Michael wanted to know my opinion on this whole situation. And I feel bad for Little Kim. You know, I feel like she definitely has a lot of self-esteem issues. As we all know, she's always been very self-conscious about being dark-skinned. She's very self-conscious about her features. She's gotten her nose done. She thinks in order for her to be beautiful, she needs to look like somebody of a different...
She thinks, this is the thing I hate about anyone with these list of complaints about cultural appropriation, racism, oppression, white supremacy. It's always, you think... They think that's because all their thoughts, and this is like back to what I was saying about social engineering, the only reason they are so comfortable, and this I kept saying this in the video coming, a conversation with black supremacists, I would tell them, there is a level of comfort that you have in ascribing motives to people that I could never imagine having. I could never sit back and say, well, you think, the reason why you think this, well, you only think this because of this. I'm not a mind reader. But these people, because they're operating in a mind control framework, they know their program. They're projecting their programming onto everyone else. And that's why they're so comfortable saying, well, you think this, because they believe, you know, this is a social construct, this is a social construct, so this is all a program, and the only reason you would be acting this way within the programming is because of whatever they're telling you you're thinking. And it's a completely anti-individualist, anti-freedom way of viewing things. There's nothing outside of the programming. That's why they're just fine being like, well, Little Kim thinks this. I've never had a conversation with her, but I know what she's thinking because there's only one reason that she would be doing this, and it's because of whatever.
Ethnicity, and part of that insecurity came from Biggie. You know, she was messing with this guy for years upon years, and then as soon as he got with some...
I mean, look at this picture of Faith. As Beyonce would say, Negro nose nostrils. I mean, that looks like a black girl. There were plenty of Little Kim pictures going back there where the two look very, very similar.
As soon as he got with some racially light-skinned woman, Faith, he married her only knowing her for 2 weeks. So it seems like Kim has always taken that very, very personal, and it's very much hurt her. But at the end of the day, Kim is a grown woman. Like I said, she's 41 years old. And I think the thing that bothers me the most about this situation is not so much about her changing herself and trying to be something that she's not. You have so many people in Hollywood and in the real world going out, changing themselves, getting breast implants, butt implants, you know, bleaching their skin, changing their eye color. You know, you had Tiny change the color of her eyes. You had Tiny's daughter go under the same procedure, and now Zanique has blue eyes as well. You know, so the whole situation is crazy. It's like nobody's just satisfied with the way that God made them. But I think the saddest part is her daughter is going to be looking at this. You know, it almost makes me feel bad. Like, what are you teaching your daughter? Because her daughter's a beautiful little girl. So it's like, what's her daughter going to look like 10, 15 years from now? She's still going to look like the same, you know, little girl with her natural features? Or is she going to run and get...
Her daughter's probably going to tell her, do whatever makes you happy. And that's the problem. I mean, I, as a teenager, my mom let me dye my hair any color I wanted. I had dreadlocks. If you could do it to your hair, I've done it. Everything short of a flat-out mohawk where I've completely shaved the sides, I've done it. And as you can see, I don't do it as much anymore, but why not? I mean, it's let people be people. Why are we bullying people over how we think they should look? So, we've had enough of this video. This is already running longer than I planned, so look at this. Ghoul, monster, whatever, you know, no one was talking about Michael Jackson's internalized black hatred and everything like that. Granted, they said he had a skin disorder, but who knows? So let's go to our favorite regressives. And I love how Anna has this sort of hood rat look going on. Like with the big hoop earrings and everything like that. Oh, I know so many girls like this.
Many on the internet are up in arms over a series of photos that Lil' Kim posted on her Instagram page featuring a completely new look. In fact, she's pretty unrecognizable from...
Notice in that other video where it showed all the old pictures, it's really not a new look. It's really just her being her, but whatever.
What she looked like back in the 90s. Now, many people have used this story to put her down, to talk about how she sold out, to talk about how she ruined her looks. But the underlying...
You can't sell out by bleaching your hair. If she sold out, it was around the time Crush on You was out, which was like 20-something years ago, but whatever.
The issue is the pressure to look a certain way, to have lighter skin, and to appeal to this notion that European-looking individuals are more attractive. Now, I think this is a really interesting story, not only because of the fact that she's unrecognizable, but because of what she represented back in the 1990s and how a lot of people that looked up to her, particularly black women, now feel like she kind of let them down because she served as this incredible role model as a black woman, regardless of what her...
Let me tell you what, I really hope, because my nieces are little black girls, I really hope there's not a black girl on earth who looked at Lil' Kim as a role model. I mean, I'm thinking back on her album. Remember the skit where they're in the movies and you hear the and the popcorn noises sounding like sex? I mean, the majority of her raps were about sucking dick and how great she was gonna fuck you. I loved it. I mean, it was like audio porn. And that, I mean, that's Little Kim records. Everyone, go download Hardcore. Remember the picture of her sitting with the panties and her spread eagle licking the lollipop? I mean, we are talking ultimate sluttiness. So I really hope there's not a black girl on earth who looks up to Little Kim. Oh my god. I mean, great entertainment. Great entertainment. Again, I loved it. I personally thought it was amazing. It was like audio porn. That's just my thing. Janet Jackson records, the same thing about him. I thought she was singing those love songs directly to me. And I would fantasize about her. But please, black girls, don't find a new role model. If Little Kim is not a role model.
Her lyrics are how vulgar you might think they were. She represented self-confidence. She represented a black woman who wasn't afraid of her sexuality, who wasn't afraid to flaunt it. And
so the person we've just been saying for 15 minutes now is so insecure, represents self-confidence. I mean, this is, again, this projection thing where it's like you're projecting your own feelings onto Little Kim. And it's funny because there was an interview after Prince died on InfoWars with a man cow, and he even mentioned that about Kurt Cobain, which is funny because a friend of mine had said that recently, where he said, I really think Kurt Cobain and the way his fans and everything perceive him is not real. It's not who he really was. And sure enough, that was one of the people Henry Mancow had mentioned. He said, Prince, Kurt Cobain, he said, the people you think they are not who they are. It's part of the product. Where, you know, everyone has this idea about Kurt Cobain that he was insecure, but he didn't really care about the records, and it was just sort of whatever, and he didn't really care about the money and everything like that. And that's not true. That was a character that was part of the Nirvana brand that was packaged together. I mean, there was a love-hate relationship with the industry and everything, but again, we're sold this idea of a persona because it helps sell the product, because it helps people relate to it in a certain way.
to go through a transition of this sort, I think, makes them feel like they were let down. So let me give you some more details on that. There was a great piece written in the Daily Beast by Yaba Blay, and I think she puts this into perspective in the best possible way. She talks about how her lyrics offered us permission to explore our own bodies and our own pleasure. Little Kim was our champion.
You needed Little Kim's permission to tell you to stick your fingers in your snatch? Really?
Now, she also says, wherever there are people of color, Southeast Asia, Latin America, the Caribbean, Africa, and the United States, there is skin bleaching. And we've talked about that a lot on.
Let me tell you what. Tanning salon. There are these things that white people go to where it's like this giant tube. I'm pretty sure you're aware of them. It's this giant tube with these artificial sunlights. They even have this other shit where they just spray it on you. Tanning salon. Where there are white people, there will be tanning salons.
The show, which is interesting because if you're considered too pale and white, you're kind of pressured to tan, right? Whether it's self-tanners, spray tans, or going under those horrible tanning beds that'll give you cancer. But then if you're considered too dark, there's this pressure to lighten your skin, stay out of the sun. You don't want to get darker, right? Obviously, there's a lot more pressure toward those with darker skin than those with lighter skin, but...
By who? Put on them by who? Again, why? I mean, this really bothers me because these people basically have this attitude that everyone is a mindless drone. That everyone is just being walked around with the marionette strings of society, telling them, like, you know, it's like you're walking through the supermarket and you see a picture being like, oh, you know, 6 great looks for summer, and it's got a blonde-haired girl on it, and that's just like Spider-Man webbing to you, attaching a marionette string, tugging on you, telling you, you need this blonde hair. I mean, this is the world these people are envisioning, where everyone is a mindless drone just being led around by magazine covers and body shaming and whatever. And no one's trying to build their sense of personal security. Instead, they are just leading them into this perpetual victimhood by making a big fuss about this shit. Like, can someone just come out and say, Lil' Kim blonde bleached her hair, I hope she likes it. I hope Little Kim likes what she looks like, because that's all that matters. That's all that matters. All your fucking black girl magic fucking collective, oh, we're upset about, go fuck yourself. Anna, all of your regressive, oh, Little Kim in the 90s, she was, go fuck yourself. I'll be the only one to say it. I hope Little Kim is happy with how she looks. I hope Little Kim, however she ends up looking, if she fucking chops her nose off and puts an elephant trunk on it, I hope it makes her happy. Why are we complaining about someone's personal decisions?
It's a disaster either way. Also, Yaba Blay says the following. She's admitted to not feeling pretty enough. She's reflected on having lovers cheat on her with women who were more European looking.
So this story...
People always tend to want something that is completely opposite to them. I have a redheaded sister, and black dudes love her because she is she is like foreign and exotic to them, and stats show that. I guarantee you, if Little Kim, instead of being worried about, like I said, European-looking women cheating on her, she should probably find a European guy, because they are probably so neck-deep in European women that they would think Little Kim looks exotic and is something special. And again, your problem's asshole men. There's plenty of them. They're not even men. They're asshole boys who don't know how to conduct themselves like men. But anyway, Cenk, take it away.
It breaks my heart a little bit because I want people to be true to themselves, right?
No, you don't. Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing this segment.
At the same time, I recognize that people have plastic surgery and they don't feel any, shame about it. And so it's not on me to put that on people who are getting it. Now, if you watch the show for a while, you've heard me say 1,000 times, my rule is 2 plastic surgeries make sense, right? I haven't had any, but I get it. If you're self-conscious about it, you got big ears and you want to pin them back or whatever, nobody's going to go ballistic over that, right? But if you overdo it, well, Lil' Kim's a good example, because who are you, right? I can't even, I don't know who you are anymore, right? So that's not those are not the same people. So you can say inside I'm the same, but I mean, look, to me, the skin color, maybe it's the pictures that make it as stark as it looks. Yeah, she happens to be blonde for now. She'll change her hair color later, et cetera. But look at the nose, right? And so people get nose jobs. We've talked about that on the show, et cetera, right?
Yeah, and those are ugly noses in the first place. I really wonder how many Hollywood nose jobs aren't done for beauty, but it's done on some sort of like, I've been doing crazy amounts of cocaine for the past however many years, and my nose is fucking falling apart. Can we salvage this in any sort of way? And they're like, yeah, but we're going to have to make it a little skinnier and, flare out the bottom. And some of it, I think that's what's really going on.
But are you does it make a difference if you're trying to get a quote-unquote whiter nose? I don't know. Am I judging too much if I talk about that? I don't know.
Yes.
But I do know this. Okay, overall macro picture. Couple of things. Look, it's not just racism. Although there is a history of racism in this country that has to be recognized. You think it didn't affect our culture at all? That if you were
agree with us? Sorry, I messed that up. But I mean, that's it's going right to that. The agree with my worldview or you're a bad person.
Hey, but that culture unfortunately has for people who were not. I mean,
let's see.
Light-skinned had enormous, unbelievable advantages over people who were not. I mean, it doesn't get any more stark than free slave, right? So that's not what's happening today, but that
I'm unaware that they were like, oh, every slave that's lighter than a brown paper bag, you're free. All the darker ones we're keeping.
Culture, unfortunately, has affected us through the generations. But then there's also the macro picture. That's why, the writer here talks about Southeast Asia, et cetera, right? So, and part of that was if you were wealthy, you didn't have to be in the field. And so you were paler. That's why the Japanese would put all the white makeup on women, etc. Even in my own culture in Turkey, I've told this disturbing story where a woman was super pretty if she was so white that you could see a dark grape go down her throat, which grosses me out every time. Okay. So, but that meant because she wasn't in the field. She was wealthy, right? If you're in the field, you're going to get tanned all day, and that's frowned upon. And so all these things exist. And then you've got the mass media, where Westerners are so dominant in presenting the culture, right? And that's not a malicious thing, it's just how it turned out. So that when Asians look at it and they go, I want to look more Western because all the people in the movies are Western and all the people who are glamorized and in the magazines are Western.
Yeah.
And then you have that here as well from dark-skinned people to light-skinned people. So I know why it happened, but it still breaks my heart.
I know. Okay, so whenever we cover stories like this, of course I get extremely torn, right? Yes, I think there should be some limit on the amount of plastic surgery you get because eventually you're going to do too much and you're not going to look normal. Forget about not looking like yourself. You're just not going to look normal anymore.
Well, but what if they feel like a woman and they want to chop their dick off, or they feel like a lizard so they want to get their nose shaved off?
Yeah.
Right? But also at the same time, I know from personal experience, what I did to my face was to make my nose look more quote unquote white, right? Armenians are white, they're Caucasians, but I had a very Armenian nose. And
She had a white nose that she needed to make look white. I mean, did you notice how there was this unnecessary racial aspect just driven into that made no sense? Because here's the thing where, you know, like she said, Armenians are white, but so are British people, so are Celtic people, so are Scandinavian people, so are Caucasian people. But because they've all been homogenized into white, and we're ignoring their actual individual cultures and differences and everything we want to do for everyone else, white people are just white. She just basically said, I had an Armenian nose, Armenians are white, but I needed a white nose.
I didn't like it. I didn't feel comfortable looking at myself in the mirror. I didn't feel comfortable on the show. I didn't like my profile. And so it was something that I struggled with ever since I was a kid, right? And I went through phases where I was defiant and I thought, no, my nose represents who I am and I'm not going to change it. But deep down inside, I was still self-conscious and I just didn't like the way it looked, right? And then eventually I decided to do what I've always wanted to do and I got the nose job and I feel great about it. I thought maybe I'll regret it, I don't know, but I ended up loving it. It gave me the confidence that I wanted. It made me feel better in my skin. And so I feel uncomfortable, you know, criticizing someone else who changes his or her features to look more quote unquote white. But at the same time, I think that, you know, I also...
Maybe she's just changing her features to make herself look more beautiful in her own personal opinion. Maybe she's not looking at it from a racial aspect.
Understand the black community for being frustrated over this because you have this successful public figure that's proudly flaunting her.
She's really not that successful. I mean, at this point, she's kind of washed up. What was her last hit? Like the Jump Off in 2002 or something? Like, come on, we're talking like 15 years of not doing shit. That's not successful.
You know, her race, her sexuality, who she is, she was like the epitome of confidence. And I think a lot of young girls who have darker skin looked up to her and they thought, yeah, you know what?
Isn't it funny how and this is where I say it's projection. They are painting this polarized picture of, well, she's so insecure, she's so you know, bothered by herself, to she is the pinnacle of confidence. And it's just them projecting themselves onto her.
Look at how successful she is. Look at how proud she is of who she is. I can be proud as well. And I can understand why they feel let down with all these new images of her that are posted on social media.
So, look, I don't know that there is such a...
I can't take this anymore. I've said all that needs to be said about this. So anyway, that's the controversy on little Kim and everyone projecting their own issues onto her. Like I said, I'll be the only one to say, I hope Lil Kim's happy. Do whatever they want, whatever you want. Do whatever you want to your hair, to your skin, to your looks. Pierce whatever, tattoo whatever, do whatever you want. It doesn't. And here's the thing. Let's just not talk about it. That'll be a much happier world and society. So, voila, the end.